can't stop me.
진짜 디즈니 애니메이션이 아니라 광고인데도 많은 사랑을 받은 이 영상.
와, 너무 재밌게 봤고 광고도 대박입니다. 진짜 디즈니컬. 심청을 신선한 관점으로 생각하는 계기가 됐어요.
한국계 미국인 줄리아류가 하버드대 졸업작품으로 만든 뮤지컬 심청의 테마곡 다이브가 챌린지 열풍까지 일으키며 인기를 끌자 LG전자가 협업을 제안해 광고 영상으로 제작한 겁니다. 자신이 만든 심청처럼 삶의 새로운 여정에 뛰어든 올해 23 줄리아의 이야기를 들어봤습니다.
I mean, the best way to describe it, I think, would be to say it really feels like a dream come true. I feel like this is something I never even thought could be possible. If you asked me a year ago where I'd be today, I would probably jump around and scream and cry and out of happiness, which is what I have done in the last year. And so my parents had never heard of the original folktale, so they actually only knew the version of the story that I wrote. But my grandmother had heard of the folktale, and so and she really was the one who initially inspired me to dive deeper into my culture and learn more about Korean folklore and our history. And our stories. And so I actually was able to film a video of my grandmother when I showed her the commercial for the first time. So it was just a really wonderful moment to, after working on this story for 2 years now, to be able to show my grandmother the impact that she's had on me, and even to my parents the impact that they've our culture and our stories and my family upbringing has ultimately resulted in this animation. So it's been a really wonderful time. So then my junior year 3학년 때부터 한국어 수업을 시작했어요. 듣기 시작했어요. 시작했습니다. I don't know which form to use. No contact with Disney. I'm definitely continuing to develop the story. Can't say too much about what direction it's going in, but definitely I'm continuing to develop the story and the characters and the songs, and hopefully the world will be able to see a longer version of Shimchang soon. But in my version, it was really important to me that she was the one who was creating her own journey, and she had her own goals and her own dreams, and she was chasing those dreams. And so when I discovered the folktale Shimchang, I was just so excited to find a story about a girl who goes on an adventure, and it's this fantastical world of land and sea and the mountains and kingdoms, and she's chasing this dream of home. And so I immediately connected to the story because of her connection with of her journey searching for her own home, especially as a Korean American, sort of growing up longing for a sense of home and a sense of that reuniting with what has been lost, whether it's culturally or my family or location. To be able to relate to a character like that, I think, was one of the things that first called my attention to the story. I think that Shimchang and I have a lot of similarities, at least in the character that I created. But in my version of the story, a lot of Shimchang's dreams and hopes and fears also were inspired by mine as well. And especially in this song, Dive was inspired by real moments in my life in which I felt like I was at a crossroads and wanted to choose the scary thing to do, but the thing that I knew that I had to do. And that's what the song Dive is about. It's about taking that scary next step that you know is necessary, because it'll bring you that next step towards your dreams. All my life, I've been the only Korean girl in the theater back growing up in Missouri, but I was very surprised to find that even in Boston, where there's lots of Asian Americans, comparatively to Korea, comparatively to Missouri, there were still very, very few Asian American students doing theater and doing the arts. And so I got very discouraged, and I felt like perhaps this isn't the place for me. And so I switched my freshman year into the pre-med program thinking maybe this is the place for me because I really wanted to do something where I felt like I belonged and I felt like I could really be myself and come together with my Korean identity. But throughout, and I loved those classes, I loved my science classes, but throughout all that time, I realized every time I had any spare moment, which is very few, but every spare moment I had, I found myself back in the theater, or I was at my desk writing, or I was playing my guitar and singing songs. And my sophomore year, with the other two Asian American students on campus that did theater, the three of us formed a club called the Asian Student Arts Project. Three of us wrote a new musical called The East Side that was about an Asian American kid. And we put all of our favorite parts of our culture into that musical. And it was a musical comedy, and we put it on at school. And we ended up selling out all 5 shows. And we grew our membership from 3 people to over 100 people. And ever since then, we've been putting on musicals on campus, and musicals and plays with Asian American casts. And I remember that at that very first show, looking out into the audience and seeing the sea of Asian American people who told me later that they'd never been to a musical before. They'd never seen anything like themselves. They've never seen themselves represented in that way. And not only is this important, but this is what I love to do. And doing it together with my best friends is all I want to do for the rest of my life. And so going into my junior year of college, I then switched back into the arts. Actually, Min Jin Lee, who wrote Pachinko, was in the audience of The East Side, that musical that I wrote at school. And after the show, she came up to me and she said, "Hi, I'm Min Jin Lee." And I said, "Hi, I'm Julia." She said, "What are you doing this summer?" I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Do you want to come work for me?" And I said, "Yes." And so I actually ended up being her intern, one of her interns that summer, together with 2 close friends. We all interned for her. Yeah, so it was a lot of a bunch of different things. Taking notes, doing research, creative work. There was a day that she took us to a jjimjilbang, and we went to noraebang after that. We had Korean, we got kalbi for dinner, and that was research for a novel that she's writing. Best day ever. Yeah, she's one of my close mentors and definitely one of the people who influenced me a lot to change my major. So I remember that was the summer before I switched back into doing the arts. And I remember I said to her, one of the reasons I'm afraid to go into the arts is I'm afraid of being weird. I'm afraid of taking this risk. And she said, "Julia, look at me. I'm weird and I love it." She was like, do you think I'm just like everybody else? No, like I'm weird and I love it. And I remember that really stuck with me because I realized like, wow, this woman who I really look up to isn't afraid of being weird, and being weird is what makes us special. And so I think I really learned so much from her that summer, and I'm just so thankful for the crazy events that led up to that. My plan for the future is to continue writing stories forever and sharing Korean culture and learning more about myself and sharing more and more stories for people to celebrate together. And my dream is just to be able to tell stories that the world can see one day, and hopefully to make the world a better place, especially for the kids who are going to see them.
파도가 날 쳐도 끄떡없지. 여정은 시작됐어. 날 지켜봐.